G'day everyone, it's James Davis from the Pax8 Academy again, and this time I've got Matt from Thread. How you doing, Matt?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Well, thank you for joining me. I'm always curious though, where are you located in this wide world?
So I'm located outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about 45 minutes northeast. It's a funny story. It's a town called Washington Crossing. It used to be called Taylorsville. They felt the need to rebrand. And so there is a little Washington Crossing monument and park, but tourism is about exactly the same, as I understand it.
Good old marketing and creating their own jobs again. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is hopefully going to be a super interesting conversation for people because we're going to be talking about modernizing our approach to servicing and interacting with our clients. It's something that's not often spoken about, but I'm seeing the need to change. And this leads me into my first question to put you on the spot is the old ways of how we've been servicing and interacting with our clients still the right way?
Old ways being email and phone, I assume. So in short, no, or at least not alone. So I'll unpack that a little bit. But really what we believe at Thread is using all channels available to the MSP and to their customers in concert, making sure that we're tagging the right person in the right channel at the right time, really meeting people where they are. So that can mean a few different things, but back to the original response, no. The reason I say that is because both original channels, email and phone, there's friction inherent in them. And because of the friction and because of the nature of the channel, they're either async totally, like email, but a poor experience. Or with phone, once you get through to the dispatcher or the tech, it's really expensive. It's a better experience, but it's really expensive because you have at least one technician on the phone and at least one user on the phone for both businesses. It ends up being a lot of resources tied up. So we love chat, of course, but I think it's really about the combination, finding the right mix based on the use case of the request.
That's really interesting, the channels concept and what you just said there around the phones being expensive but the best experience, that starts to unravel understanding what's the best channel for what sort of situation. So maybe you've mentioned chat. Are there any other sort of channels that we would typically utilize to do that sort of interaction with our clients?
Yeah, I mean, we see SMS is one of the most requested channels. And I think, WhatsApp, of course, everywhere outside of the US, or at least in Europe. And on the SMS and WhatsApp side, I think it's really fundamentally the same challenge that you see in Microsoft Teams or in Slack, whereby if you're present in the tenant or the workspace, what you run into is users or site contacts asking a tech directly, or even higher than that, a service manager or the CEO of the MSP, I need help, or I want to get your opinion on something. And it totally bypasses your queue, your process. Whereas if you have an integration, whether it be Slack, Teams, SMS, or WhatsApp, what that does is it still facilitates the instant access, like on-demand type experience and priority, importance that they want to feel, white glove, so to speak, experience, while still making sure that a ticket's created on the back end right away, and then you're capturing all the communication and the work and the audit trail of the PSA, which is, of course, super important.
We're starting to dive into some of the mechanisms, but maybe we bring it back a bit. Why are we needing to change from that sort of traditional email and phone support to these sort of more, I guess, omni-channel approaches with different options?
Yeah, I think, certainly we're seeing a generational shift, I think, as millennials, as Gen Z really continue to grow within the workforce. They're more digital native generations, right? They're not analog or digital nomads, as some people like to call them, whereby they weren't born with or nearby a cell phone or the internet, and they've had to learn and pick up these systems and platforms a little bit older, whereas Gen Z and millennial, I'm a millennial. I still remember a time before the internet, time before cell phones, but certainly the younger folks, when you ask them to pick up a call, instead of going like this, they go like this. And I think that says everything right there, right? So they're looking for more of a, best of all world scenario, async when they need to be, sync when they want to be, and really digital led, digital first, as opposed to spending all that dedicated time on the phone.
So with that demographic change, what is the sort of the partner, the MSP, the break fix shop? What are they having to do to change their mentality to actually embrace this demographic change?
That's a great question, and I think it is fundamentally a shift in mentality whereby ticketing systems were invented, kind of in the days of mainframe computing, whereby you had a punch card and you punched it in, and that was your ticket. You had like a physical proof of work, right? And it's a legacy concept in our opinion, and it was never meant for service, which is fundamentally is the business of MSPs, TSPs, whatever you'd like to call them. Service is in the name of the category. And so I think it's a service first mindset instead of, a support mindset, if that makes sense. We had queues for a long time, and essentially and SLAs, right? And in my opinion, both are kind of meant to be a bit of a buffer to help you get to the bottom of what the issue is and really buy yourself time, bide some time at the cost of the experience for the end user. I always like to say that users don't move in SLA time. They move in and certainly experience things in chronological time. And as we well know, when you have a pause button, those two don't connect. And so I think it's a service first mindset as opposed to a support mindset.
It's very interesting that shift of that mindset shift of traditionally we've been there to fix things that are broken. Even that sort of customer service side, I think we're evolving into more enablement as we get more and more tech savvy people in our clients, as the millennials and Gen Z sort of take over the business space. Those needs of what we're providing and what they need as a client have dramatically shifted from sort of back of house infrastructure things that are randomly breaking. Like you said, we need time to actually investigate this and deal with it, compared to probably what people are asking more questions around their application layer. It's very different sort of delivery, isn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. I kind of liken it to, in a way, what Uber did for taxis and for car services, whereby the technology, the car, right, the limo driver, or I'm sorry, the taxi driver and the medallion was pretty commoditized and pretty well federated throughout the country and the world. And what Uber did was they came in and said, the model fundamentally needs to change. We're going to come in with a technology-driven, experience-based service, as opposed to standing there having to wave your hand around. And I think fundamentally that's what we see happening in the space, right? Is that the stack, unless you're in a highly specialized vertical, which if you are, amazing, right? With very kind of specific technology needs and compliance requirements, that might be different. But certainly if you're going after SMB and everybody's on the Microsoft 365 and Azure stack, it's relatively commoditized, right? And once things become commoditized, you can really standardize how you service it and how you support issues. But I don't know that a lot of folks are thinking that way or see it coming.
And that's pretty dangerous, because if it's commoditizing, that means the margins are going to get squeezed. If we're staying on the traditional side, there's obviously a time limit for how long that's going to be a profitable business. So this change of mentality is actually not just a good thing for the clients. This is longer term business transformation for us to maintain our high premium margin offerings over the long term. And so what I'm sort of curious about as we talk about this is maybe dive into some practicality. And you've mentioned chat. What do you see around sort of the globe for adoption of chat in, say, the traditional MSP space?
Sorry, I think you froze there. I lost the question.
What do you see around the globe for adoption of chat in traditional MSPs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think really, and we've thought about this quite a lot because obviously it involves who we work with heavily. But I think what we've seen more broadly as well is that when you look at the psychographics of the firm and the team in place, leadership team and the service leadership side of the organization, really those who fundamentally and deeply believe in the importance and the value of delivering a differentiated experience and again a service first experience, they'll lean in very heavily because they believe that even if technology is not there yet or maybe not as many features as they might like to see, they believe that it's the future, right? They believe that chat's the future, and they believe that certainly meeting your customers or your clients where they work in workflow, whether that's again phone, email, chat, SMS, WhatsApp, so on and so forth, meeting them where they work. It's again a shift in mindset. It's taking the onus off the user to pick up the phone or to email, and again, kind of that friction concept from earlier, and really saying we'll meet you where you are when either you need us or when we have something to engage you with.
To me, chat, its very essence, apart from the difference in the channel, it's very similar to the phone, isn't it? It really, like, you're still a lot of the time, unless you're doing it asynchronously, you've got someone dedicated to responding initially to triage it and then push it off, even without having proper automation and workflow. So I've never quite understood why a lot of partners struggle with putting that channel in when they already dedicate everyone to the phones. It's sort of an odd reason and roadblock to get in the way. But you mentioning that putting it inside the workflow of the clients, I think that's resonating with me a lot around, well, we need to make it work for them. It's about our clients. And I know we've got to structure our operations to be able to deliver it on margins, but often when we structure it for the clients, there's that less friction and actually reduces a lot of our work effort. So I'm curious as you're sort of talking about that, what's some practical sort of operational level, high level processes to think about as you're rolling out sort of chat and driving adoption inside your company?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one major concept that we really expound on, recommend, and it's something that you mentioned earlier, is enablement, right? To the extent that you're able to provide in-app or with the basic workflow or have it readily available materials that helps the Gen Z user, the millennial user who want to self-serve anyway, to an extent that helps them understand what it is that they need to do in order to get back to work or to get what they need done. I think that's really important, and it's a very low cost, high experience win right out the gates. And I think related to that is have a really defined and definite kind of point of view on the nature of the requests that you're handling and your kind of service catalog, and understand what the happy path, the golden path experience for that type of request is, and then really make sure to train or make it easy for users to understand. When I have a new user onboarding, I go here. When I have to ask for my password reset. I go here. This is what I can expect in response. If I have to do a form of 2FA to prove I am who I really am, I have a video showing me how to do it. Type deal. Really, it doesn't cost very much to put yourself in the customer's shoes and the end user's shoes and understand, like, hey, and certainly if you're working with a very similar profile of company, hey, what are we seeing most from this type of company? And if I'm in their seat, where would I look? Where would I go? What would I need in order to handle it very efficiently and effectively? And I think right out the gates, those are two kind of easy wins that generally we see a lot of value from right away.
It's really, really interesting that sort of what you're talking about, high value, and it's enabling the clients, and it's going to reduce our margin. It's going to reduce the impact on margin and deliver a better client experience. I see a lot of traditional partners resist looking at self-service. I'm curious from your perspective of why do you think that is, and what's getting in the way with their mindsets?
Yeah, I think there's a couple factors at play. One is definitely if it ain't broke, don't fix it type deal, right? If you have your hands around and control around the phone channel and the email channel, even a customer portal channel as a channel, introducing a change definitely can be scary, and managed poorly, it can result in issues. We've definitely seen that, certainly in my former life as an MSP, as well for 10 years. But I'm a big believer in that change is inevitable, and you want to be in front of any enduring patterns or movements that you see in the space. When speaking with your customers, you want to be at the forefront of it, because if and when they're asking you for it, it may already be in an RFP out. Yeah, it's sourcing bids. Certainly, if you're seeing it, 1, 2, 3 customers, and as you talk to peers and your peer groups, I know everybody's looking to get an edge, and certainly. Service gross margin and tool sprawl is an opportunity to consolidate and elevate your gross margins. So I would encourage very strategic bets in that regard. Certainly talk to your network, but I'm always a big believer in being at the forefront.
I think there's a danger here. With not embracing self-service. I think we're still trapped in that mentality of the phones need to be ringing, or we're not providing our value, because a lot of us haven't even really achieved the true sort of ideal of what an MSP was. We've only really fixed priced break fix and IT infrastructure management. And what's probably already going on that a lot of people aren't realizing is a lot of the millennials and Gen Zs are just going onto YouTube and finding the answers to their issues, or they're using something like Copilot or ChatGPT to fix their own problems. So if we're not providing any kind of value, for even at that level, that we could be through self-service or something, that we're just going to be seen as a roadblock and a bit of a dinosaur, and why are we paying $120 a seat for these guys to be around? When there isn't that sort of either high-level advice or that end-user enablement side, we're going to see a lot of client churn. And I think to keep going along these lines, that this chat experience, and I'll go on a bit of a diatribe monologue from my perspective. Like, even me as a millennial, I never pick up the phone for anything. I resent having to call somebody, and I won't use their business a lot of the time unless it's really specialized and that's all they can do. So even that, chat on your website, or the chat for your support and enablement, that's going to make me question your business. But from there, that sort of experience, what you're talking about, I'm really curious to explore your perspective on the changing work environment. Majority of us have grown up in the office. Things have changed since COVID, where it's hybrid, it's work from anywhere, it's work from home. How's that affecting this sort of servicing and interactability with clients?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one consideration you certainly nailed right on the head, which is if you're working with customers who don't physically need to be in the office, and you're not you're not dispatching texts or have dedicated coverage hours with that company, really they're only going to see your branding when something's going wrong and think of you when something's going wrong. And that's just not a great way to start off a relationship, or really keep the CSAT levels high, keep the engagement high. If you're like the plumber and the toilet's broken and I need you immediately, but I don't want to see you again, type situation, as opposed to, we're big believers in that level of integration, that level of connectivity, always on, low latency type, to use a lot of technical terms, low latency type service. You feel more integrated into the business, and you feel like more of a valued partner, a trusted partner, as opposed to, again, just the guy I call when I need something and something major is happening. And I think the more proactive engagement, the more you can educate their team on opportunities to be more efficient, to be more effective, to unlock arbitrage in their business by using things like AI and latest and greatest automation technologies that they may not have thought of otherwise. The deeper and the more foundational the relationship is, and the more valuable it ultimately becomes. And I think that's really what, certainly, again, nodding back to the commoditization side of things, that's the only way to really provide enduring and lasting value. Certainly now, is to have those strategic conversations. Security is one thing, but I think automation and enabling them to do more with the same is certainly another path to explore.
I'm just, as I'm taking all this in today, what probably stands out to me the most is the need to understand your clients and where they're at, going back to where you sort of started this conversation at. And that's the basis of creating the workflows and the value for that offering and engagement, isn't it? It's what might work for, say, a hospitality industry is going to be different to a professional service, to a mining company. Without understanding their workflows and how they operate, if we don't properly integrate, we are just going to be treated like a tradesman, like you described. So one thing that came to my mind as you were saying that sort of work from anywhere type of mentality, we're not typically working 9 till 5 anymore. So that's where self-service comes into play as well for people outside of hours. I know from my perspective of getting support, let's use the banks as an example. Sitting on hold is always a waste of time. But the experiences I've had with professional services firms that let me pick a time, to schedule a time to have a virtual call, it's perfect. It takes the pressure off them providing it as well, because I've decided when I want to do it. And that might be 3 weeks ahead in time. So I think that mentality shift is not understanding and breaking down that work. So I'm curious to hear your sort of experience and your perspective on this. Is like, what sort of things should we be looking for to make these decisions on what channels and what sort of workflow and what sort of systems that we should be using to provide that enablement to our clients?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was, I really appreciate that question. I think there was I think it was Steve Jobs. I saw a recording recently of him on stage talking about, I think they had spent a few $1 billion and weren't quite capturing all of the value that they could from things like the iPhone and the Mac, and essentially, but things were on the upswing. And his point was, start from the experience forward. Don't start from the tech back. And that's what I mean by kind of considering the golden path, the happy path, the magical experience that you want the user and your customers to have by looking, again, walking a mile in their shoes, understanding that it's inconvenient for them typically when, either they have an issue or they're issuing a request. Think, how can I make this as seamless for them as possible? Understanding what I have at my disposal and work from there. And I think oftentimes what you'll find is there are very low friction, low integration ways to elevate that very, very easily, which, for instance, if you give them a Timesys link to put on their intranet, then they can do exactly what you just mentioned, which is, I don't want to have to pick up the phone and call and wait in order to get something. It's much more convenient for me to click a link and pick a time that's convenient for me and be able to reschedule it if I need to, if something comes up. And so I think starting from that frictionless, that seamless, that convenient user convenience point of view goes a long way.
Well, we've been covering a lot of benefits of sort of the more modern interactivity points. So I keep focusing on chat because I think a lot of people have tried like client portals, and they haven't, to be fair, haven't driven adoption and implemented it properly. And it's a good example of what you spoke about before around, it's not good enough to just roll out a tool. You need to engage with your clients, educate them, and give them videos, keep driving that enablement piece to leverage your services and get the best out of it. But from a chat perspective, what sort of technology is there these days? Like, I'm imagining AI will just magically do everything for us. But where's sort of chat up to for this sort of TSP space at the moment in terms of the functionality and capability off the back of it?
Yeah, definitely. So circling back to an earlier concept, in addition to being expensive, phones are not well integrated necessarily. We can capture a transcript, maybe write it to the ticket, maybe not, depending on what you're using. But with chat, it's text-based, it's integrated, and it's ordered in time. And what that enables you to do really is take a look, again, at the experience, what the progression of asks and baseline information that you might need in order to deliver the service requested, and say, hey, how can I capture this, maybe in a not so scalable way now, but that will scale in the future with AI and with automations. Or, hey, can I trigger a workflow downstream based on the status change, and then print the results of that script running right to the user in the transcript, and really cut out the manual intervention for something simple. And so I think it's certainly in 2024 we'll start to see really, really exciting advancements in the level of integration, and of course we're seeing a lot of really exciting AI-driven use cases as well.
That's very exciting. It goes back to self-service again, doesn't it? Being able to produce the right form, to fill out the right information, then to trigger the right things to happen behind the scenes. Like, I'm imagining potentially a HR person being able to go, I've got a new user request, and then it walking through of all the requirements and automatically does it for them. There's a lot of opportunities that are opening up from that. And that traditional mindset, we wouldn't do that kind of thing because our value is on actually doing the work. But for a HR person, maybe they're doing it at 10 p.m. at night because they've just realized the person's starting tomorrow because it was a rush job. So it starts to reduce that sort of friction again, like what you've been describing this whole time. And as you're talking about that sort of emotion through sort of utilizing chat, what sort of sprung to my mind is the opportunity to leverage more offshore resources to deliver that experience through chat. I know a lot of people are afraid of putting offshore resources on the phone, but written language is different to verbal language, and it's a lot more process driven through chat. Are there any other sort of examples? Have you seen people leverage chat with the offshore resources to success? Or
Yeah, chat. Written mediums are the great kind of equalizer in that perspective. If you're looking at industry leading products, they'll have pre-canned standard note like functionality built in the voice of your MSP, of your provider, so that the level of response will meet your requirements every time. And then, of course, you have things like Grammarly or again, leading platforms in the space will leverage AI to help you spell check, make sure that the grammar makes sense, and provide great kind of proactive suggestions there, so that it doesn't feel like the experience has suffered simply because it's after hours. It looks and feels the same, no matter where the sun is.
I think a lot of owners would love that, and a lot of techs would love getting that the admin burden of writing out all the notes fully all the time. Would love it as well. I know I was just speaking to a owner of a large MSP down in this part of the world, and they had to let someone go because they kept writing in text SMS language inside normal ticket notes, and they just couldn't break it. But that's sort of that challenge again with the demographics as they change. So I see this as a sort of the start of something very new at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity because a lot of the very essential but very time-intensive, manual, admin-heavy tasks and long notes that you'd write after delivering the service. You have to remember, I did this then, and bill your time, best case scenario. But of course, everybody's busy and might forget a detail, or you might, forget to put the time in altogether. With the advancements in technology, it's all about empowering the technician or the dispatcher to focus solely on the end user and what their needs are. And then all of the admin stuff kind of happens alongside them or behind the scenes, thereby empowering them to deliver a better experience and do so more effectively, more efficiently.
Well, we've been speaking about a lot of the positives and why we think this is changing and what we're seeing. What are the challenges people are going to have with chat, and why are some of the reasons why you wouldn't sort of roll out this more modern approach?
Yeah, I think starting from the customer, there are some businesses where it doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense from what we've seen. Could be retail, like restaurants. Not a lot of computers, a lot of different people on shift, more of a transactional type relationship, less of a professional service type relationship or experiential relationship. Anytime that you get into that scenario, or you get into a scenario where maybe it's a multi-office, small regional chiropractic practice, again, similar concepts, people aren't sitting in front of computers all day. That might be a scenario where, hey, email's fine, phone's fine, I only need my provider a couple times a year. And that's okay. So that's one consideration. The other would be, we'd definitely run into situations where folks, they don't like change. They've been handling issues the same way. And so to the extent that you can come in and meet technicians where they work, we've gotten a lot of value out of that and a lot of adoption, a lot of buy-in, because we're not saying, hey, all of a sudden you have this new interface or you're only working out of chat. You might have a chat shift, similar to your point from earlier to being on the phones. But then after that, you'll still get updates in wherever you are, Slack, Teams, or your PSA, but it enables you to kind of experience the best of all worlds.
It's really interesting. I take that point around the type of client again, assessing their needs is super critical to this point. And I think I would say a lot of us make too many assumptions about our clients, from purchasing decisions to the way they operate. We need to go back and reassess what and understand their businesses a lot better. And this is a good catalyst for that from our business perspective as well. How do they operate? How do they need to be serviced? All of that kind of stuff. It all feeds into this sort of elevating ourselves up to that technology advisor. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with the transactional approach. There's still very much need for that sort of break fix type of support, however you package that up. But that's a transactional relationship compared to what we're talking about here, which is more that ongoing enablement and governance and advisory type engagement, which is very different. So again, it comes down to your business model and your clients' business models. I've been learning a bunch and taking on a lot from today, and I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. We've covered a lot of concepts. What do you want people to really take away from this session, and what's the clear next action point for them to go and do if they've heard us and go, yeah, I do need to modernize my approach?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, we covered a couple bigger concepts, and I'll stick to that before we go to the next practical step. But again, I think as we look at technology, as we look at business technology, and we look at the commoditization side of things, we look at the kind of tool sprawl and the ever implementation problem that we all know well is certainly prominent in the space. I would definitely harken back to my advice from earlier, which is really think deeply about the experience that you're delivering to your users, to your customers, and think about differentiation through experience. And what I mean by that is, if the tech is commoditized and you're going to market and saying, we have the best tech stack, well, you don't, because virtually every MSP in your region will have a very similar stack. But if you're marketing through highly personalized experiences, you send a gift that harkens back to a conversation that you had with a user or with your primary contact a year ago, and they get it, they take a picture of it, they post it on social media. That goes a lot further and really helps you stand apart from other people who are only pointing to the tech. So I really view it as a strong differentiation opportunity, a strong marketing opportunity, because we know well that providers do struggle with marketing quite a lot as well. So further to that point, the best first step is to talk to your customers. Set up time if you have a QBR. QBR is a great forum for it, but they're never going to, or at least they shouldn't, probably not a good customer if they do have issue with you reaching out and saying, hey, how can I serve you better? Where's your business moving? What do your teams need or want or are asking for? Because I want to make sure that we are delivering the best experience that we can for you. Very positive conversation. You'll get a lot of data out of it. Maybe what you're doing well now, not doing well now, and any opportunities for improvement. And that might be, more scheduled calls. It might be a scheduling option, or it might be additional channels of support.
There's some awesome advice and insights throughout the session. I think my big takeaway from this is, and insight would be, maybe your clients that you've got now are used to the way that you deliver, and maybe the majority of them don't want you to change, and that might be okay. But the threat to you is the new clients that you are going to lose out on from not looking at this kind of thing. So don't just make all your decisions based on where you are currently. This is very much a longer term business and digital transformation journey, and just being more holistic in it will net you better results over the long term. So it's been an awesome session. My brain is in a flurry of ideas and excitement. Hopefully the listeners and the viewers have gotten some nuggets out of your wisdom today, Matt. So thank you so much for joining me, and no doubt I'll have you on again in the future.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, and would love to come back on.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.